Alright guys, it's Snoo. Thank you for tuning into this video. It's going to be a very data-oriented one, all about Citadel farming, all about Crisis Fragments, their drop rate, the formula behind how they drop. I believe we have cracked the code on that formula, so it's a very exciting time. I've had many conversations with people, a lot of anecdotal evidence, a lot of data tracking for myself, a lot of back and forth in the Prohibited Library Discord, which is a very great resource that some of us Path of Exile players use for data sharing. Now, whether you know a lot about this game or a little bit, I think you're going to get quite a bit of good intel from this video, better understanding how you might want to approach Citadel farming based on wherever your character's at, what strategy you're doing, whether you're SSF, whether you're in Trade League. Almost anybody is going to be interested in Crisis Fragments as they are an integral part of the in-game experience. So stay tuned for this video and use all the different timestamps that are listed down below. There's resources in the description as well. Now, I am going to pause this video as these fragments drop out of the boss here, and I'm going to give you the juicy details up front, okay? So for those of you who do know a lot about this and maybe just want to hear the spiciest details, then you can walk away better informed. Take a look at the right-hand side. You'll see that the map information is detailed there. The bottom line says 563% increase waystones found in area. Notice that I dropped 3 weathered Crisis Fragments. That is something probably very few of you have experienced in 0.2, but you might have experienced it a lot in 0.1, because in 0.1, those numbers were just simply higher. So the formula, I believe, has not changed on this. And I was actually incorrect before when I made a video back in 0.1 thinking that the formula was at a breakpoint of every 300, 400-ish percent. It turns out to be 500%. I'm quite certain of that. 99% sure at this point anyway. 500% is the breakpoint to get additional Crisis Fragments. What do I mean? I mean, when you have 0%, no suffix modifiers on the Waystone, you're just going to drop 1. It will scale up to 2 as you get closer to 500%. Your chance of that increases. Once you surpass 500% increased waystones found in area, then you are guaranteed 2 Crisis Fragments with a chance to drop 3, all the way up to 1000%. Then so on and so forth, 1000 to 1500. And that was actually more pertinent in 0.1. Not so much now, but the important thing is the formula hasn't changed on this, I believe, so hopefully this video will have quite a bit of staying power. The other major thing is the fact that the increased waystones found in area is the only line of text that matters in this formula. Now, there are a few different things that feed into this number, but that number itself, that line itself, the very bottom line to the right here, is the only one that means anything. So that is the sort of TLDR of the most important information for those of you who already know a thing or two about this. For the rest of you, or if you just like to, you can stay tuned for the remaining part of this video. I'm going to try to keep this fairly short and sweet, well organized, and as detailed as possible at the same time. As just mentioned a moment ago, increased waystones found in area is the only factor that matters for the sake of understanding this formula and affecting how many Crisis Fragments will drop. So let's talk about how you boost that. There are essentially 3 major ways to do that. One of them is, of course, suffix modifiers on waystones themselves. Now, everybody likes to put an emphasis on the prefix modifiers, which of course are very good for juicing maps, but they have no meaning for the sake of this farm, at least not directly. And so the only thing of real concern here is the suffix modifiers, which means, yes, in order to get the most bang for your buck, you're going to have to take on some pretty nasty waystones. But you can at least kind of, to some extent, control or anticipate how much you can handle based on some of the modifiers here, you see here, and how much percent increased waystones found in area. You'll see that the lowest number is 25%, typically the easier modifiers, all the way up to some of the hardest modifiers at 45%. We can see right here, for example. Now, this is not the full comprehensive list of all the waystones, just top tier, so some of the nastiest modifiers in the game, but this is one of 3 major ways to increase your Crisis Fragment drop rates in that line of text that increases the waystones found in area. Up next, we have the Distilled Emotions, particularly Distilled Envy. 30% increased waystones found in area. This is a sort of flat increase bonus on top of whatever the total suffix number is. It, of course, can be, any waystone can be distilled up to 3 times, so you could have a total of 90% increased waystones found in area, flat increase to the number on your waystone. This will be collectively slammed into the modifier you'll see at the top of that waystone, which we'll take a look at here in a little bit. Precursors is the third major vector for which you can increase quantity of waystones found in your maps. Interestingly, this is worded differently. Back here we have increased waystones found in area. Back here we have increased waystones found in area. But up here we have increased quantity of waystones found in your maps. It so happens that even though this is worded differently, it is slammed into the same bucket in the end, essentially additive on top of the other numbers from the waystones or the distilled emotion. The roll range on this varies from 10 to 20. Of course, if you're taking this strategy seriously, you're going to have towers near your citadels, and you're going to want to slam those towers with precursors, generic precursors like these that have increased quantity of waystones found in your maps. Of course, in terms of precursors, there's other variables at play, like Visions of Paradise, unique precursor, or the Grand Project precursors, which are both heavily involved in a strategy generally, but this is not a strategic video. It's really a video just focused on numbers. I'll talk a little bit more about strategy later on in the video. Now, perhaps I should have included a fourth vector from which you would increase that number. It would be the Atlas. There are additional ways to boost the numbers that I've already talked about, both for precursors and for waystones. Let's look at them now. Now, just first, let's take a quick notice at the bossing section. We have some modifiers that sound like they would affect this, such as increased quantity of waystones dropped by map boss, or increased quantity of items dropped by map boss, or just increased quantity of items found in the area. But I'm, again, 99% confident those don't matter one single bit. They have nothing to do with the formula in play. Up here, we have a couple of additional ones. Again, increased quantity of waystones dropped by map boss, and I believe that has no effect. And you can see here that I've not allocated any Atlas passive points into map boss, as it, again, seems to have no impact whatsoever on Crisis Fragment drop rates. So why make the map boss harder than it needs to be? None of the Atlas passives for the additional 4 different mechanics have anything to do with this, so we're just going to take the rest of the focus and put it on where I've already populated Waystone. So anything related to Waystone is probably going to be useful. We can see here that I have an Atlas. It is using all the points, and I do believe this is the absolute best Atlas, point for point, that you can use in order to boost this number as high as possible. We have a few things, such as, again, just additive increased quantity of waystones found in your maps. This is just a number that is added, tacked on to the end. We also have perhaps a more potent node, increased effect of explicit modifiers on your waystones. Very good there. Similar to increased quantity of waystones found in maps, we got a bigger notable here. And then just more increased effect of explicit modifiers on your waystones. We have a special notable here, increased effect of explicit modifiers on your waystones for each explicit modifier. All right, pack size is not going to matter here, but we just got some more small nodes that do all the same things. And then we have a very special keystones. Waystones have 25% more effective prefix modifiers or 25% more effective suffix modifiers when opening maps. That matters greatly. That's 25% bigger number through the suffix explicit modifiers. And then we also have the precursors, okay? Don't discount these. These are equally as important. Up to 40% increased effect of precursor explicit modifiers for all the precursors you put in towers, given however many towers you have, as well as a 20% chance to double the effect of precursor tablets on your maps. And 3% increased effect of explicit modifiers on your waystones for each precursor tower affecting the map area. That has a rather small effect at this point in the meta. Perhaps a very honorable mention given to Corrupted Infusion. Technically, the way to increase the number to its absolute maximum would be utilizing this. However, it comes with equal risk of bricking a map into pure prefix modifiers. Technically, you could have a 10 modded, 5 prefix, 5 suffix Waystone, then corrupt into pure suffix modifiers for a total of 10 suffix modifiers. I've done it once, bricked the map shortly thereafter. Don't recommend. But, you know, in terms of the numbers, in terms of theory, this would be the maximum way to increase that number. Now I want to bring your attention to an actual data sample size that I've been using. I've recently started tracking them in pretty serious fashion. Here is a list of 49 Citadel maps that I have ran. There's a couple blank spaces in here. That means I bricked the Citadel, for the record. But what you're going to see is I've logged the percent Waystone chance on the area. That's that special number on the right that we talked about in the intro of the video. And I logged the exact number of Crisis Fragments I got. I went into this with the hypothesis Citadels guarantee 1 Crisis Fragment per boss kill, with the chance for additional Crisis Fragments scaling linearly off of % increased Waystone-Chance, with guaranteed breakpoints at every 500% increment. Again, I disclose this at the front end of the video. What does this mean? It means you guaranteed 1 Crisis Fragment. As you approach 500%, that number, you get a higher and higher chance of dropping 2. At 400%, you would have an 80% chance of dropping 2 fragments and a 20% chance of dropping 1. At 200%, you would have a 40% chance of dropping 2 fragments and a 60% chance of dropping 1. At 700%, you would have a 40% chance of dropping 2, or no, rather, 40% chance of dropping 3, a 60% chance of dropping 2, and a 0% chance of dropping 1. So you're guaranteed 2 or 3 fragments between 500 and 1,000%. If you manage somehow to get over 1,000%, you would start unlocking the possibility of dropping 4 fragments. We saw that quite a bit actually in 0.1, that sort of roll range. So the evidence is pretty substantiated here in the total that I have. This is just 49 Citadels, but I mentioned I've also had a great many conversations with a lot of people in the know, a lot of people who are trustworthy on this. Everything seems to check out. I personally averaged a Waystone-Drop-Chance in area of 513 with an average of 2.09 Waystones. I mean, that is almost exactly right on the money. That's super, super close to what I would expect to see in this case. You can see that I did drop 3 fragments several times. I dropped 1 a few times. In most cases where I dropped 1, I was very unlucky because I was actually pretty close to 500%. Most of these numbers are at least 400%. And if I dropped 3, I was probably a little bit lucky because, again, the roll ranges that I was working with, taking this strat pretty seriously, put me somewhere between 400 and 700% most of the time. Now, if you happen to have different data on your hands, if you are aware of yourself or anyone else having dropped, let's say, 1 Crisis Fragment above 500%, let me know. That's completely unheard of for me. If you're aware of anybody, likewise, dropping 3 Crisis Fragments below 500% Waystone found in the area, let me know here in the comments section below too, because that would be huge news to me. I will go ahead and link this spreadsheet for you in the description of the video so you can take a look at it. I will continue populating this up, as many Citadels as I do in 0.2 anyway, just to help further substantiate the data in play. And of course, if there is any reason to, I'll update in a pinned comment of this video if any new enlightening information comes about that completely goes against what I'm saying in this video. Let's just real quick look at some examples of different Waystones. This is getting a little bit more into the strategy. If you were to start doing this farm, of course you would start putting suffix modifiers on your Waystones to give yourself a chance at first to get not 1 but 2 Crisis Fragments, and potentially to go even higher risk, higher reward for not 2 but 3 Crisis Fragments in the area. I made a video actually on this particular type of Waystone. This is, in my opinion, a terrific blend, a middle ground, if you will, on how to get the highest reward for the lowest risk. It involves a 4 affix Waystone, 1 prefix, 1 suffix, and then it involves anointing it with the Distilled Envy. Okay, and then you can see, because it's not corrupted, I can in effect indirectly control which suffix affixes I have, so I know exactly how dangerous it is or it's going to be, and it has a total Waystone-Drop-Chance of 200%, which is a pretty respectable number. Moving on up from there, you would have essentially the same type of Waystone but corrupted, and the reason why you would like to stick with 4 affixes because that remains 3 portals. You could actually die twice and still save the map. But moving on from there, for a slightly higher risk, you might put 5 affixes on the map, 2 prefix, 2 suffix, slam it with a Val Orb, and hope that they all turn suffix, as this is one outcome. This is the desirable outcome in the case of farming Crisis Fragments on a Waystone. And after that, you would have all 6 affixes filled. This turned into what I referred to earlier, a 10 affix map, 5 prefix, 5 suffix. And the nice thing is that this will be actually pretty high because of that special notable on the Atlas tree. But overall, it's really just a 5 suffix mod map with 1 portal only. At the very top end, we have a full-blown 6 affix suffix map with 1 portal, 6 dangerous modifiers, and this can roll obviously quite high. I have an example of a very well-rolled one here, 300% Waystone-Drop-Chance, counting the distilled emotion. That distilled envy is on every single one of these. And at the very end, I have one that happens to have 3 very juicy suffix modifiers already on it. All 3, 45% number, the maximum number so far. And just for fun, we're going to go ahead and slam this to see what happens. And unfortunately, it went to tier 16. It could also go to tier 14. It could get a whole bunch of extra affixes to be 10 in total. Or it could, in effect, brick into nothing but prefix modifiers, which is still a nice map to run, but not very useful for the sake of this strategy. Moving on to precursor tablets, here's an example of a very well-rolled one. Again, the roll range is 10 to 20, but it goes all the way up to 20. I don't really care what the other affix is for the sake of this farm, but you can have a well-rolled one like this, and if you're looking to get some more of these, you can pick a ton of precursor tablets up and use the reforging bench to 3-to-1 them to give yourself more opportunity. There are other affixes that are decent for precursors, but these are relatively cheap as far as they go, not necessarily perfectly rolled, but you might settle for 15, 16, 17%, somewhere in that range as well. The Grand Project allows you to leapfrog towers to pursue the strategy more quickly so that you can just simply jump across the map within that range. Very useful for honestly all strategies involving exploring the Atlas. And for the sake of this farm, Visions of Paradise is extremely powerful too. I don't want to leave you without the intel in case you didn't see any of my other videos and only watch this one. Visions of Paradise can be used on the first tower in range of a Citadel. It irradiates the map. Well, you would pair this up with probably 2 other precursors that would irradiate every single map in the area. And then it would give it with a special modifier. Completing the map removes irradiation but does not finish the map or fully complete the map, which means you can run it again unirradiated. But if you had yet another tower in range, you would re-irradiate them with, say, triple precursor tablets like this, in which case that special modifier stays on the map. Even with just 1 Visions of Paradise, you could run that map yet again. And then again, after you've run out of towers and no more irradiated, so you could run it potentially 2, 3, 4, or possibly even 5 times. And on that note, I think it'll be a great segue to a quick cut montage of one particular Citadel I ran recently through a Twitch VOD on an actual official farm that I did for profit. Ended up farming 13 divines per hour on that farm, getting an average of 5.5 Crisis Fragments per Citadel. This particular Citadel was the best of the bunch. Out of 10, I was able to loot a total of 10 Crisis Fragments from 1 Citadel, running it 4 times across 3 towers. So here's the exact setup. Here's how it went down. You can see it played out real quickly. If you're not interested in this, by all means, skip forward to the end of the video. All right, we're getting to that Copper Citadel now. Visions, Grand, and 120%er. So, run it once. Got this set up. Fairly easy map to start. Alright, 401. First Citadel done. First time. Get to run this one 4 times, hopefully. 2 fragments. Well, I guess I'll start with this one. Alright, we'll run this again. Really stunned him on this attack. 437.
She's still breathing.
2 fragments. There we go. Gotta keep this train alive. 620. 620. 3 fragments. Let's go. We're under par. Nah. Final round. A real juicer here. I'm gonna actually respec. 686. 3 fragments again. Oh my god. 2 under par. What? Bro, 2 in a row? 2 in a row. Well, guys, that about wraps things up. I've hit basically everything I intended to hit. We talked about the formula, what it takes to increase the Waystone-Drop-Chance, where the breakpoints are. I showed you some actual data that I've been logging in this endeavor. I also showed you a montage of exactly how this plays out, at least at the high end, and you can probably imagine at the lower end what it would take to some extent to build up to that, with some example Waystones and Precursors that you might use in that process. I don't think there's much else to say in this video. Again, I hope this ends up being a video here to stay. If the formula stays, you can always refer to other people to this video to share with them, help educate them on Crisis Fragment drops. Again, it is an integral part of the endgame process, so it is pretty important, I would say, and a very valid farm, especially right now, for making currency. This video is not about making currency. It's not about the build I was using, but if you have any questions on that, well, there's also more links on that in the description of the video too, including a build guide and that sort of thing. Now, we're getting a little late into the 0.2 season here for Dawn of the Hunt, and we're about to unleash 3.26. In fact, at the time of recording this, this is literally hours before the grand reveal for that. And yes, I will be playing in that. I'll come out with more videos on what my plans are for 3.26. Still got a little bit more content to make for PoE2, and of course we will revisit PoE2 probably before 0.3, I would say, but certainly by 0.3. So expect more videos from me. If you're watching this content explicitly for PoE2 content, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like. If you're anxious to see more PoE1 content from me, which is of course what the channel is well known for, well, times are about to get good for you as well. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please let us know in the comments section below, or anything else you'd like to say for that matter. I hope this video was of value to you. And like always, I'll see you in the next one.